Delaware, one of the smallest states in the United States, yet it occupies a position of remarkable importance in American history, law, and economic life. Often referred to as the first state, Delaware earned this title by becoming the first of the original 13 colonies to ratify the United States Constitution in 1787. Despite its modest size and population, Delaware has consistently played an outsized role in shaping the nation's political foundations, industrial growth, and modern corporate practices. Its strategic location along the Atlantic coast, its early embrace of constitutional governance, and its unique legal framework have allowed Delaware to exert influence far beyond what its geography might suggest. The state lies in the Mid-Atlantic region, bordered by Pennsylvania, Maryland, New Jersey, and the Atlantic Ocean. It is a place where northern and southern cultural traditions intersect, where colonial towns coexist with modern corporate headquarters, and where farmland, wetlands, and beaches define much of the landscape. Delaware's identity has been shaped by centuries of change, beginning with indigenous peoples, followed by European colonization, revolutionary struggle, industrial expansion, and contemporary globalization. This essay presents a comprehensive exploration of Delaware as a state. It examines its geography, early history, colonial period, role in the American Revolution, development through the 19th and 20th centuries, economic structure, political and legal significance, cultural life, education system, environmental challenges, and modern identity. Through this extended analysis, Delaware emerges not merely as a small state, but as a foundational and enduring force in the American story. Delaware's geography is among the most distinctive in the United States due to its simplicity and uniformity. The entire state lies within the Atlantic coastal plain, making it the only state without significant elevation changes or mountain ranges. The highest point in Delaware, located near the Pennsylvania border in New Castle County, rises to less than 500 feet above sea level. This flat terrain has had a profound impact on the state's history, settlement patterns, agriculture, and transportation. The state stretches roughly 100 miles from north to south and is at its widest only about 35 miles from east to west. Its eastern boundary is defined largely by the Delaware River and Delaware Bay, both of which open into the Atlantic Ocean. These waterways have historically served as critical routes for trade, travel, and communication. The western and southern boundaries are shared with Maryland, while the northern boundary touches Pennsylvania. Delaware's land can be broadly described as fertile and low-lying. The soil, particularly in central and southern regions, has long supported agriculture. Farms producing corn, soybeans, wheat, and poultry have been a mainstay of the state's economy for generations. Marshlands and wetlands dominate much of the coastal and southern areas, creating habitats for wildlife and serving as natural buffers against storms and flooding. The state's climate is generally classified as humid subtropical, with mild winters and hot, humid summers. Proximity to the Atlantic Ocean moderates temperature extremes, especially along the coast. However, Delaware is vulnerable to coastal storms, hurricanes, and the effects of climate change, including sea level rise and erosion. These environmental factors continue to shape policy decisions and conservation efforts across the state. Long before European settlers arrived, the region now known as Delaware was inhabited by Native American tribes who lived in close relationship with the land and waterways. The Lenape people, also known as the Delaware Indians, were among the most prominent indigenous groups in the area. They lived along the Delaware River and its tributaries, relying on fishing, hunting, agriculture, and trade. The Nanticoke tribe inhabited southern Delaware, particularly near the Nanticoke River and surrounding marshlands. These indigenous communities had complex social structures, spiritual traditions, and systems of governance. They cultivated crops such as corn, beans, and squash, often referred to as the Three Sisters, and used seasonal migration to maximize natural resources. Rivers and bays were central to their way of life, providing food, transportation, and trade routes. European contact dramatically altered the lives of Delaware's indigenous peoples. Disease, land dispossession, and conflict led to population decline and forced migration. Over time, many Native Americans were pushed westward or absorbed into other communities. Despite this displacement, their legacy remains an essential part of Delaware's history and cultural heritage. Delaware's colonial history is unusual because it was influenced by several European powers before ultimately becoming English territory. The Dutch were the first Europeans to attempt settlement in the region, establishing a trading post in the early 17th century. However, this initial effort failed due to conflict with indigenous peoples and harsh living conditions. In 1638, Swedish settlers arrived and established the colony of New Sweden along the Delaware River. They built Fort Christina, which later became the city of Wilmington. The Swedish presence introduced lasting cultural and architectural influences, including the log cabin, which became a common form of housing on the American frontier. The Dutch eventually regained control of the region, only to lose it again in 1664 when the English seized the area. Under English rule, Delaware became associated with the colony of Pennsylvania, though it maintained a degree of autonomy. By the early 18th century, Delaware had its own legislative assembly, signaling a growing sense of political independence. Colonial Delaware was largely agricultural, with small towns and farms spread across the countryside. Its ports facilitated trade, while its rivers supported milling and early industry. Although it lacked the large plantations of the southern colonies or the major cities of the north, Delaware occupied a strategic and economic niche that would prove important in the years to come. When tensions between the American colonies and Great Britain escalated in the 18th century, Delaware found itself deeply involved in the struggle for independence. Although small in population, the colony contributed significantly to the Revolutionary cause. Delawareans served in the Continental Army, supplied materials, and participated in political leadership at the national level. One of the most famous episodes in Delaware's revolutionary history involves Caesar Rodney, a delegate to the Continental Congress. In July 1776, Rodney rode through the night during a thunderstorm to reach Philadelphia in time to cast the deciding vote that allowed Delaware to support the Declaration of Independence. This dramatic act has become a powerful symbol of Delaware's commitment to American independence. Delaware soldiers gained a reputation for discipline and bravery, earning the nickname the Delaware Blues. They fought in key battles and helped secure independence for the new nation. Following the war, Delaware quickly moved to ratify the United States Constitution, becoming the first state to do so on December 7, 1787. This action cemented Delaware's place in American history and earned it the title the first state. After achieving statehood, Delaware began the process of building its own institutions and identity within the new federal system. Its early government reflected both colonial traditions and Republican ideals. The state constitution established separate branches of government and outlined the rights and responsibilities of citizens. Throughout the late 18th and early 19th centuries, Delaware remained largely rural, with agriculture as the backbone of its economy. Slavery existed in Delaware, but on a much smaller scale than in the Deep South. By the time of the Civil War, Delaware was considered a border state, with divided loyalties but remaining in the Union. Politically, Delaware developed a reputation for moderation and pragmatism. Its small size encouraged cooperation and personal relationships among leaders. Over time, the state refined its legal system, laying the groundwork for what would become one of its most defining features, its influence in corporate and business law. The 19th century marked a period of significant industrial development in Delaware, particularly in the northern part of the state. The Brandywine River, with its fast-moving water, provided ideal conditions for mills and factories. One of the most influential figures in this era was Eleuthère Irénée DuPont, who founded a gunpowder mill along the Brandywine in 1802. The DuPont Company grew rapidly, becoming one of the largest manufacturers of explosives in the United States. Over time, it expanded into chemicals, materials science, and industrial innovation. DuPont played a crucial role in supplying materials for wars, infrastructure projects, and consumer goods. The company's success helped transform Delaware's economy and made Wilmington a center of industry and wealth. Industrialization brought new challenges, including labor disputes, environmental concerns, and urbanization. However, it also brought prosperity, technological advancement, and national prominence. The DuPont legacy remains deeply embedded in Delaware's economic and cultural landscape. During the Civil War, Delaware occupied a complex position. Although it permitted slavery, it did not secede from the Union. The state's loyalty to the Union was significant, given its location and political divisions. Delaware contributed troops and resources to the Union cause, even as internal debates over slavery and states' rights continued. After the war, Delaware experienced gradual social and economic change. Slavery was abolished, though racial inequality persisted. The late 19th and early 20th centuries saw shifts in agriculture, the rise of manufacturing, and increased immigration. These changes reshaped the state's population and economy. The 20th century brought profound transformation to Delaware. Advances in transportation, such as highways and railroads, connected the state more closely to regional and national markets. Suburban development expanded, particularly in New Castle County, as people moved away from urban centers. Delaware's most significant modern development was its emergence as a center for corporate law. The state enacted laws that made it attractive for businesses to incorporate there, including flexible corporate statutes and a specialized court system. The Delaware Court of Chancery became internationally respected for its expertise in business disputes. As a result, thousands of companies, including a majority of Fortune 500 firms, chose to incorporate in Delaware. This phenomenon transformed the state's economy, generating revenue and global influence far disproportionate to its size. Delaware's government operates under a traditional structure with executive, legislative, and judicial branches. The governor serves as the chief executive, while the General Assembly creates laws. However, it is the judicial branch that has earned Delaware its unique reputation. The Court of Chancery, which focuses on equity and corporate law, has become a cornerstone of Delaware's identity. Judges in this court are appointed based on expertise rather than elected, allowing for consistency and professionalism. Businesses value the predictability and clarity of Delaware's legal decisions, which often influence corporate law nationwide. This legal environment has made Delaware a global hub for incorporation, affecting how businesses operate not only in the United States but around the world. Delaware's modern economy is diverse, encompassing finance, healthcare, education, manufacturing, agriculture, and tourism. Banking and financial services expanded significantly in the late 20th century due to favorable laws and regulations. Healthcare and education institutions provide employment and innovation, while agriculture remains important in rural areas. Tourism plays a major role, particularly along the coast. Delaware's beaches attract millions of visitors each year, contributing to local economies and shaping regional culture. The state's historic towns, parks, and museums also draw tourists interested in history and nature. Delaware's culture reflects its position between north and south. Northern areas often resemble nearby metropolitan regions, while southern Delaware retains a slower, more rural character. This blend creates a unique social dynamic within the state. Residents often express pride in Delaware's history and close-knit communities. Festivals, local traditions, and historical preservation efforts help maintain a strong sense of identity. Although the state lacks major professional sports teams, it shares cultural ties with neighboring cities, particularly Philadelphia and Baltimore. Education is a priority in Delaware, with a network of public and private schools serving diverse communities. Higher education institutions, particularly the University of Delaware, contribute significantly to research, innovation, and workforce development. These institutions help prepare students for careers in science, business, education, and public service. Delaware faces ongoing environmental challenges, including climate change, sea level rise, and habitat loss. Coastal erosion threatens beaches and communities, while wetlands are at risk from development and pollution. The state has implemented conservation programs to protect natural resources and promote sustainability. Efforts to balance economic growth with environmental protection are central to Delaware's future. As a low-lying coastal state, Delaware is particularly vulnerable to the effects of global warming, making environmental policy an urgent concern. In the modern era, Delaware continues to adapt to changing economic, social, and environmental conditions. Its small size allows for responsive governance, while its legal and corporate influence ensures continued relevance on the national and international stage. The state remains committed to preserving its history while embracing innovation. Investments in technology, education, and renewable energy reflect a forward-looking approach. At the same time, Delaware maintains its traditions, landscapes, and community values. Delaware stands as a powerful example of how size does not determine significance. From its indigenous roots and colonial struggles to its revolutionary leadership and modern corporate dominance, Delaware has consistently shaped the course of American history. Its geographic location, legal innovation, and cultural blend make it a state unlike any other. As the first state, Delaware symbolizes the birth of constitutional government in the United States. As a modern state, it represents adaptability, stability, and influence. Through centuries of change, Delaware has remained a vital part of the American experience, proving that even the smallest state can leave a lasting legacy. Delaware is a state in the Mid-Atlantic and South Atlantic regions of the United States. It borders Maryland to its south and west, Pennsylvania to its north, New Jersey to its northeast, and the Atlantic Ocean to its east. The state's name derives from the adjacent Delaware Bay, which in turn was named after Thomas West, 3rd Baron De La Warr, an English nobleman and the colony of Virginia's first colonial-era governor. Delaware occupies the northeastern portion of the Delmarva Peninsula, and some islands and territory within the Delaware River. It is the second smallest and sixth least populous state, but also the sixth most densely populated. Delaware's most populous city is Wilmington, and the state's capital is Dover, the second most populous city in Delaware. The state is divided into 3 counties, the fewest number of counties of any of the 50 U.S. states. From north to south, the 3 counties are Newcastle County, Kent County, and Sussex County. The southern 2 counties, Kent and Sussex, have historically been predominantly agrarian economies. Newcastle is more urbanized and is considered part of the Philadelphia metropolitan area. Delaware is considered part of the southern United States by the U.S. Census Bureau, but the state's geography, culture, and history are a hybrid of the Mid-Atlantic, northeastern, and southern regions of the country. Before the Delaware coastline was explored and developed by Europeans in the 17th century, the state was inhabited by several Native American tribes, including the Lenape in the north and Nanticoke in the south. The state was first colonized by Dutch traders at Swannendale, near present-day Lewis, Delaware, in 1631. Delaware was one of the 13 colonies that participated in the American Revolution against Great Britain, which established the United States as an independent nation. On December 7, 1787, Delaware was the first state to ratify the Constitution of the United States, earning it the nickname the First State. Since the turn of the 20th century, Delaware has become an onshore corporate haven whose corporate laws are deemed appealing to corporations. Over half of all New York Stock Exchange-listed corporations and over 3/5 of the Fortune 500 are legally incorporated in Delaware. Over 90% of all U.S.-based companies that went public in 2021 incorporated themselves in Delaware. Delaware, one of the original 13 U.S. states, was the first to ratify the federal Constitution. It's located along the Middle Atlantic seaboard in the Boston, Washington, D.C., urban corridor. Though the second smallest state, It is densely populated. Delaware's economy is diverse, with strengths in agriculture, industry, and commerce. It has been called the chemical, corporate, and credit card capital of the United States due to its liberal incorporation laws and specialized court of chancery. The state's location helps its prosperity, with major U.S. cities within 150 miles. Delaware is a constituent state of the United States of America, located along the Middle Atlantic seaboard within the Boston, Washington, D.C., urban corridor. It occupies a small area, ranking 49th in total area among the 50 U.S. states, yet it is one of the most densely populated. The state is organized into 3 counties, Newcastle, Kent, and Sussex, from north to south. Its location is favorable for economic prosperity, with 4 of the 10 largest cities in the United States lying within 150 miles, 240 kilometers, of Delaware. Most of Delaware lies within the Atlantic coastal plain. Delaware is known as the first state because it was the first state to ratify the U.S. Constitution on December 7, 1787. The state flag of Delaware bears the inscription December 7, 1787 to commemorate this historic event. The flag's colors, blue and buff, are based on the uniforms of Continental Army troops. Besides the first state, another nickname for Delaware is the Diamond State. The capital of Delaware is Dover. Founded in 1717, Dover is in the east-central portion of the state on the St. Johns River. Dover is a state government and farm trade center with some light industries. It is home to Delaware State University, 1891, and Wesley College, 1873. Dover Air Force Base, a principal air cargo terminal for the Air Mobility Command, was established during World War II. You can also find the Delaware Agricultural Museum and Village about 2 miles, 3 kilometers, north of the city center. Delaware has a diversified economy with strengths in agriculture, industry, and commerce. The state's favorable location helps its prosperity. Major industries and economic activities include agriculture. Poultry is the leading agricultural product. Other major products include corn and soybeans. Chemical industry. Several large chemical and pharmaceutical companies have their home offices and development laboratories in northern Delaware. Finance. Delaware adopted the Financial Center Development Act in 1981, designed to attract credit card banking to the state. Tourism. Sussex County is known for its seasonal ocean and bay resorts. Delaware's history has significantly shaped its culture and government. Originally inhabited by Native Americans and later colonized by the Dutch and Swedes, it became an English colony in 1664. Its early economy relied on agriculture and trade, with slavery playing a divisive role. Delaware's strategic location has fostered a diversified economy with strengths in agriculture, industry, and finance. The state's favorable corporate laws, dating back to 1899, have made it a legal home for many corporations, contributing significantly to its revenue. The state's current constitution, adopted in 1897, reflects a balance of power between the executive and legislative branches. Although the Democratic and Republican parties are fairly evenly matched, bipartisan support is essential for major state initiatives. Thank you for watching this video.